Hi everybody, Armoured Pants here, and I have another video for you. This is the Emil 1951 premium tank, which is in the store at the moment in the drop boxes. Obviously it's expensive to get this tank, so I guess the question you guys want to know is it worth it? And we'll look at that in some detail. We'll look at the tech spec, and we will look at the all the details of that in blitzhanger.com. Now, in terms of the history of this tank, is it a real tank? Well, yes and no. It is part of the overall Emil Olsson designer who created the Kranvagen project in Sweden, and this was one of the first designs. It never went into production, but yes, it did lead to the creation of the actual Emil line of tanks. So yes, overall it probably did exist, you could say. Let's have a look at the tech details of in blitzhanger.com. In terms of provisions, I would run cinnamon roll, improved fuel, and extra cheese head. I would run calibrated shells, supercharger, refined gun. Calibrated shells, I always run that if I've got a magazine loading system, so definitely I would choose that. It has a 10.5 centimeter gun or 105 millimeter gun, same as its counterpart in the Tech 3, the ML1. Reload is 20.8 seconds. You get 3 seconds between shells, and basically you got 6 second unload of your entire burst. Now, pen numbers are 230, 270 and 53 millimeters respectively with AP, APCR and HE. Now, run calibrated shells, and the reason is that in a magazine reload it makes almost no difference. It's actually less than 5% difference, 4.8% difference in your reload time. It's nothing, so it's well worth it for the extra pen. Damage is 310, 270 and 400 damage points for AP, APCR, HE. And your burst damage is running from 780 with APCR all the way up to 1200 with HE. Muzzle velocity is 1404 meters per second, going up to 1755 meters per second with APCR and 1170 meters per second with HE. Please note that the difference is significant between your lowest shell velocity and your highest. So you need to be aware that when you're selecting shots, you got to lose about 34% of your muzzle velocity between your slowest shell HE and your fastest shell APCR. Gun index is 15.4, which is excellent. That's kind of like tier 9, almost tier 10 gun handling. So that is fantastic. Mobility index is 2.8, which is really good for a heavy tank. Anything over 2 is really good for a heavy. So this tank is mobile too. And that's really down to the power to weight ratio and the fact that it's lighter than its Tech 3 compatriot. It's 2 tons lighter than its Tech 3 compatriot, the ML1. Now, in terms of some of the concealment numbers, if we look at a tank with 304 view range, you get spotted up at 270 if you're still, 285 meters if you're moving, and your own view range is 288. So it's not bad for heavy, but its view range is pretty good, right? 288 is pretty good. It's the same as the ML1 in the Tech 3. This is sort of like a medium tank. I mean, if you take the STG, which we just reviewed, that has a view range of 290, so it has a good effective view range. In terms of the armor, this tank is all about the frontal armor and the turret armor. Turret armor is exceptional. It's almost impossible to pen front on, which means that because this tank has 10 degrees of gun depression, it is excellent hull down. Has some spaced armor at the side here, which we see, which is great for protecting the tracks. It has 14 degrees of gun elevation only, which means you're 1 degree less than the Tech 3 equivalent, the ML1. It's another difference. I'll go through some of the other differences in a second. It does 40 kilometers per hour, 20 in reverse, so it's good power to weight ratio. That's 5 kilometers per hour faster than its Tech 3 equivalent, so another difference in its favor. Some of the other differences are that it has plus 50 DPM, it has plus 2 pen on AP, plus 16 pen on APCR, minus 5 pen on HE. You get minus 10 damage points in AP rounds, minus 10 damage points in APCR, but its rate of fire is significantly better, and that's because you get a bump of 2 seconds on the magazine reload. And this thing is all about burst damage, so having an almost 2 second less reload time in a magazine is what makes this tank really effective. It also has better dispersion, so it's better gun handling. As I said, it's lighter by 2 tons and it has a better power to weight ratio and better traverse, significantly better traverse than its ML1 Tech 3 equivalent. So overall, all of those small things add up to make this tank significantly better than its Tech 3 equivalent. So that goes back to answering the question, well, is this tank worth the money? well, I guess there's a more existential question, right? Is any pixelated tank worth the money? Because you can't really possess it or own it. It's a bit of code sitting on the server, and when you stop playing the game, it's useless, right? Unless you are somehow able to sell your account, which is not allowed. But if you somehow do manage to do it, you're still never going to get the value back of all the money that you spent on it, right? So is it worth it? Well, in terms of monetary, no. But in terms of enjoyment and playing, and if this is a hobby and you want to spend money to enjoy your hobby as you do with any other hobby, then yeah, it's worth it, because this tank is great. It's a great Blitz tank. You're going to see a massive game here from me. I shot this yesterday when I was doing trying to shoot some footage for you guys. It's a mastery game. It's on Yamamoto Harbor, and you're going to see all of the assets that this tank exhibits in play in this game. Its burst damage is phenomenal. So you can see here in 2 bursts I'm going to clear off completely this KV4. He's front onto me now, so I'm going to take a hit. I thought it might bounce because the KV4 has bad gun handling. It didn't, but you can see, look, he can't even reload, and bam, he's gone. So 2 bursts, he's gone, and I'm up to over 1700 damage points, and we're not even 90 seconds into the game. Now I'm going to capture A. Obviously this is an autoloader. When you're playing an autoloader, we've discussed this many times, and I have a lot of tutorials on the autoloaders. In fact, most times I do a review on autoloader, I give the autoloader mini tutorial. But if you haven't played it before, I'd suggest you go and watch one of those tutorials. Any of the other autoloader tanks guides have it. But basically the simple principle is this. You play in bursts of activity, right? You can't be active in the game in terms of damaging the enemy for the period where your magazine is reloading. So it's different to a normal gun system. So when you have this downtime, when you can't damage the enemy, what you should do is what I'm doing here is move, or do something else strategic, like move to another strategic part of the map where you can snipe or do damage, open up fields of fire, or if you're playing Supremacy, capture a base, because generally when you're capturing a base, you're inactive. Also, if you've only fired off 1 shell and you still have 2 remaining, but you're not going to need to fire again for another 20 seconds or so because you're going to capture a base, so there's no enemy targets in sight, then do a full reload. And for those of you experienced, you just tap on the shell icon to do that. Some inexperienced players think they need to fire off the last round to reload. You don't need to do that. Tap on the shell icon and it automatically reloads, which is beneficial. Saves you credits for wasting a shell, saves your stats for missing a shot in terms of your accuracy, and of course doesn't give away your position because you blow your camo numbers when you fire around. So you can see in this game, if we look at the Emil 1, we are now just over 3 minutes into the game, and I'm almost at 3k damage. I've captured 2 bases. So what have we seen here? We've seen the burst damage in play. We have seen the mobility in play, that good power to weight ratio. Now I'm going against my own rule here. I'm keeping this 1 shell in the magazine because I think I might be able to clear off the WZ. But as soon as I see him rabbiting, I'm not going to be able to catch him. And I also want to capture C, because this game is close, it's 3v3. You can see now, bam, I hit the shell icon and I reload fully the magazine, because I know I'm not going to need to fire around for the next 10, 15, maybe even 20 seconds. The IS-3 comes into play. He wasn't actually chasing me. You can see that he's not focused on me, so it gives me a chance to hide behind the taken out tank here, the hulk of the tank here in front of me. And now I'm reloaded, and I can start putting in some damage again. And you can see how good the gun system is. As I said, this thing has, it has better gun handling than some tier 10 heavies, right? If you look at the VK9001P tank that we reviewed recently, this thing has a better gun handling index than that. So you're talking about tier 9 gun handling on a tier 8 tank. And you can see there, you get pen numbers all the time. It runs really, really good DPM, because it pens so often that your actual DPM as opposed to theoretical DPM is phenomenal. You see there almost 5k damage, mastery game, big load of XP there, 1560 XP, which is kind of the XP you need to get a mastery at tier 10. So you can see this tank, its characteristics allow you to deliver significant performances if you play to its strengths. If you go running into the enemy when you've only one shell left, etc., you're going to suffer. You need to play to the strengths, and its strengths are its mobility, its gun handling, and the burst damage. Is it better than its tech tree compatriot? Absolutely. So if you are a fan of this auto-loading Swedish gun line, tank line, and this gun system, then you would definitely want to get your hands on this. But it is very expensive. And if you don't like, and I definitely don't like the principle of the drop boxes, although you are guaranteed to get it, you can't waste your money and not get it. So in that respect, at least it's not gambling as normally the crates are. So I hope you found that useful. I hope you found it enjoyable. And now I guess all that remains for me to say is, as always, pants off.